Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to CSS Lesson 2. Today we're going to be talking about IDs and classes, which is, if you just watched the video prior to this, these are selectors that you can use inside of your style tag. So let's go ahead and ask ourselves a question. When might we use an ID or a class? For an ID, you're going to use an ID when you want to control a single element. So you're singling out one element to change. That makes sense because if you got an ID, you would not have the same ID as another person, right? That wouldn't make any sense. Your ID is supposed to be unique. So IDs are unique to a single element, which is different than a class, where classes are useful to control groups of elements. So multiple elements could have that same class. And this is useful to create a section of multiple elements that you can format in a similar way. If you want to think about it, in another analogy, if you think about the middle class, it is a collection of many people, each of whom may have IDs, but classes are a group of many people, and in this case, classes are a group of elements instead of people, if you want to think about analogy. So let's go ahead and take a look at a table here I made. So if you see classes, they're less specific and used on multiple tags, whereas IDs are more specific and used on an individual tag. So you don't want to use IDs on the same ID on multiple tags. However, you can use distinct IDs as long as, like, if you had H1 and P, you could use one ID for H1 and a separate ID for P, and that would be valid. But don't use the same ID for both H1 and P. Whereas classes, you could then do H1 and P is the same class attribute, because they're less specific and you can use them on multiple tags. That's the proper way of using an ID or a class. So let's go ahead and look at using IDs. So if we look here, I went ahead and made this little CSS and some HTML here, and you can see the output on the right here. So the ID attribute is placed in the opening tag. So as you can see here, we have H1 ID equals alert in quotes. So that's the syntax you're going to see there. And then I'm going to go up, and the hashtag indicates the selector is an ID. So hashtag alert is then going to apply to the alert ID, where I have it right here. So this is going to apply to H1 only. Now I have another ID for this paragraph right here called important. Notice I had hashtag important here, and then I go ahead and define the rules for that ID. And notice they are different and they show up differently. So that is the syntax for an ID. Again, you put the ID attribute inside of the opening tag, ID equals in quotes alert. Then you go ahead and select that ID with hashtag alert, and then you can set rules for those IDs. So that's pretty easy. Notice that these are two different ID names, right? You don't want to have the same ID name, as I said. They should be unique, which is different than if we were using classes. If we go ahead and take a look at this example I have here for using classes in CSS, we can see that we have these class attributes defined in here. So we have class equals alert. We've got this H1 and P both being the class alert, and that is also similar to the ID attribute placed inside the opening tag where we want that class to be applied. Then if we go up to the style tag up here in the internal CSS, we can see the dot is used to indicate the class selector. Instead of a hashtag, it's a dot. So we say dot alert, and now this rule is going to apply to any tag that has the class alert. So it would be both of these tags, and as we can see, both of them do have black in the background. You can also select a specific tag type of that class. So I have two different types of tags here, H1 and P, and I can say H1.alert and change the color for all the first headings of the alert class, and as I see I did there, and then I change the size and color of the paragraphs to be orange and the font size of 130%, and as you can see, that applies there. So this gives you a lot of control over your classes and allows you to section off things and apply rules in a very unique way. And as we go through these videos, you'll see where they get applied more. They're very useful for things like floats and divs and creating columns and all sorts of different things, and we will get into that through examples in the next few videos. So in summary, IDs are used to control the style of a single element. Classes are used to control the style of a group of elements. IDs and classes are both specified in the opening tag of the tag of interest. So remember, we're saying ID equals whatever our ID name is in quotes, and then class equals whatever our class name is in quotes. Both of those are inside of the opening tag. Then IDs are selected with the hashtag in the style tag, and then classes with a dot. So remember that that's going to be useful. So hopefully you enjoyed this video and you learned a little bit. Look forward to seeing you next week.